The Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This debate is about the Border Processing Arrival and Departures Levy Bill. And the first question I would ask this House is, when is a levy a tax? And when is a tax a levy? And when is a tax not a tax? Well, we found out today, we know when it is, and when it's not. It's when the Prime Minister says so. That's when it's a tax and when it's a levy. It's a tax, if for the member opposite, sitting at the back, who immediately interjected, a tax is raised by a levy. This is a levy and it goes to a tax. Mr Speaker, this is a tax. Make no bones about it. This is a tax. To the listening public and the people in the gallery, tonight, here at this late day and Saturday afternoon, this government is forcing through, under urgency, a new tax on New Zealanders. This debate is all about a brand new tax. Never mentioned, never canvassed, and I have to say the old saying, no taxation without some representation, no representations were made to the government to bring in this new tax. It's just a very sneaky little manoeuvre passed under urgency, and that is why we will oppose it, Mr Speaker. We will oppose it because it was not a tax that was ever canvassed with the public of New Zealand. Did they go to the election and say, we are going to raise a new tax? We're going to put it on travellers arriving and departing, on New Zealanders, on foreigners? No, they did not, Mr Speaker. This is a very sneaky, sneaky little tax. And I have to say, I am particularly disappointed in the Minister of Tourism, who happens to be the Prime Minister, because he was at a tourism conference 2 or 3 days ago. Did he mention that he was going to bring in a tax on their industry? Their minister, their own minister, goes and speaks at a conference. You know, Jokey John was there. Well, maybe it was Jandal John. He was there. He was there with the jokes and the smiles and the laugh. Did he tell them that he was going to bring in a sneaky little tax and pass it under urgency on a Saturday afternoon? No, he did not. He didn't raise it. He never gave any indication at all to a very, very important constituency. Now the Nats want this debate out of the way as fast as possible, because they know they wanted to come. They came to us. They wanted us to agree with it and to get it out of the way as fast as possible for one reason: they are embarrassed. They are embarrassed because they are bringing in a new tax, and it's been brought in by a Prime Minister who can perform gymnastics with the truth. He can do the double backflips on anything he likes, and we have got plenty of examples. No new taxes, he said, so he raises GST. No new taxes, so here tonight at 5:10, he sneaks in a border tax on New Zealanders and on foreigners. He breaks his promises like he breaks his eggs into the pan in the morning. He couldn't even deliver on the promise to give New Zealand a panda. I mean, that's how many promises he breaks. Yesterday, Mr Key was asked what was the difference between a tax and a levy. And the Prime Minister, when he was asked what was the difference between a tax and a levy, his answer, many. And then he was asked again. He said, Google it. And then the third time he said he could answer it, he said, but I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother, and that is a quote. And the Prime Minister couldn't bother telling New Zealanders what this was all about, whether it was a tax or a levy or why we were having it. He just couldn't be bothered. So I have to say that, having claimed many times, and like one of those biblical characters who did it 3 times, he said it was for biosecurity. He finally said it was for, that was Judas if you wanted to know, but he said it was for biosecurity. Well, biosecurity, let's look at the government's record on biosecurity and the hopeless, hapless minister they've got, who is the Minister for Biosecurity. He has been hopeless in this position. He has let more insects and bugs into this country and put things under threat than any other minister in the history of this country. And he cut the staff and he cut the funding. Now he wants to replace it by putting a levy on New Zealand. What a sham. If it was really about biosecurity, Mr Minister, why not increase the levy on the ports and on containers? Because that is where you find most of your biosecurity risk, not the odd person that might inadvertently have an apple in their bag, which in fact most are caught because they go past one of the sniffer dogs. It is in your containers and over your ports, and there. Why not increase that levy? Oh no, no answer to that. And it's a sneaky attempt to grab money from hard-working Kiwis who want a holiday, and in their own documents they say the most hard hit will be those going on short-term trips across the Tasman. So New Zealanders, probably the only trip they can really afford is going across to Australia, so they're the ones that are going to be mainly hit. What has been the reaction once they found out that this sneaky little tax was going to be introduced into this House? Air New Zealand said they were very surprised. They said it will add to the cost of the ticket. And then they asked a very good question, and I hope the Minister can answer this question. If it is really about biosecurity, they said, what biosecurity or custom risk do New Zealanders who are leaving New Zealand pose? What is the biosecurity or custom risk that New Zealanders who are leaving pose? No, the big argument, Minister, is it's for biosecurity. Your Minister who just sat down, she talked all about biosecurity, Minister, and so tell me what is the risk of someone taking their bag and going to another country? What is the cost of a departure? Because this is imposed not only on people coming into New Zealand, but also on departure. Now, the airline industry, who probably know a little bit about people coming and going, actually asked that question, Minister, and I hope tonight when you get into that chair, you're going to, no, well, you can sit in the chair and answer it properly instead of just yelling across the House. They want to know why it's going to be charged on people leaving New Zealand. I think that let's see what the Board of Airline Representatives said. They said the tax was a breach on an understanding reached between the government, the airline and tourism industry in 2003. Did the members opposite know that there was such an understanding? That there was an understanding that has been in place since 2003, honoured for all the 5 years of a Labor government, but broken, like their promises, by this government. They broke an understanding, they breached an understanding, which means their word is worth nothing. It's worth nothing when an understanding is made. They announce this, they do not consult on it, they do not say we're going to do this, they bring it in and they have breached an understanding between the government, the airlines and the tourism industry. You cannot trust them. Mr Speaker, they also said that they were disappointed that the government itself would harm the tourism industry. That is what the airline representative said. They are surprised that the government itself would harm their industry, a $10.4 billion industry. Tourism New Zealand, what did they say? They said taxes imposed in other countries had an adverse effect on travel. Now let me go to the final point I want to make. December 2011. The British government announced an increase in departure tax for air travellers to New Zealand. The Prime Minister went to Britain. He slammed the decision, saying it would place a significant burden on New Zealand business and families who travel. He said it was a tax, and he said it was discrimination on the basis of distance. Now that was said by the Prime Minister in 2011. He opposed this passenger tax in Britain. He flew there at the taxpayers' expense. He flew there at the taxpayers' expense. I don't care how much it is, Mr Minister. It is the principle. The principle. It's a tax. And our Prime Minister flew to Britain to oppose it. He flew there to oppose it. He got headlines in the media. He got on the front of the television news because he said it was discrimination. Well, I'll tell you, Mr Minister, what it is. It is double standards. And it's what we expect from the National Party. They make promises they break on a daily basis. They say no new taxes and they put in new taxes. The biggest one, of course, being increased GST that hurt the people who have the least in this country. And then tonight, they're sneaking in a tax they never consulted on. They have no right to bring it in without such representation.
The member's time has expired.